Hello. With Stranger Things getting very close, I mean, it's tomorrow when I'm making this, I had this idea in my head that I wanted to talk about, that being the fact that the entity is rivaling, or at least coming into contact with various other cosmic beings, cosmic horror monsters, or cosmic deities. I don't know whichever term you'd like to use to describe the entity and these other beings I will mention. It's starting to rival other cosmic entities like itself. Three, as far as I know, these being two of them being hive minds, and the third being a god. And, well, the first one, since I'll say this since Stranger Things is tomorrow and it's everything everyone's been thinking about lately, is the Mind Flayer. Everyone knows the Mind Flayer. Come on, we've all been binge-watching Stranger Things right now. To those who don't know, which you should, the Mind Flayer is this swirling cloud of black particles that can inhabit and control organic matter, and it can create its own organic matter, as we see with how it creates the Demogorgons and the Demobats and its various flesh forms, and possibly possesses the power to grant and or awaken innate psychic abilities. As we see, you all should know this, spoilers, but I don't know why you're watching this if you haven't already watched Season 5 of Stranger Things. It possibly has the ability to either awaken innate psychic abilities or grant them to its hosts, because when the exotic matter or physical fragment of the Mind Flayer, I don't know what the stone was, that comes into contact with Henry as a child, he gains access to his powers immediately after he absorbs the stone. He probably never would have gotten it had he not. So it's either that the Mind Flayer granted him these powers or awoke those powers inside of him. But if the powers would never awaken without the Mind Flayer, then I guess the Mind Flayer still technically gave him the powers, huh? Anyway, you all have a pretty good idea of what it looks like. You've all seen it throughout the seasons and know what it's capable of. It's a pretty terrifying monster. And I love how ominous it is. In its various appearances. Nothing to me beats the original, swirling shadow spider thing. Although I do like both flesh spiders, the one in Starcourt, and I thought the one at the end of season, the Pain Tree, was pretty cool. Although, it went down too easy. But I'm not gonna blame. I'm not gonna blame the Duffer Brothers. They've been working on this show for 10 years now. I understand if they may be getting a little bit worse, probably because they're burnt out from writing this story for about 10 years now. But that's just me. I like to sympathize. But anyway, this is the main one we're thinking about because Stranger Things is relevant right now. But there are two others. The other one being the Leviathan from Hellraiser, the god of pleasure and pain. This giant, absolutely, unfathomably huge floating diamond in the sky that hovers above the labyrinth, it is a labyrinth, but it's its weird version of hell. Whether the labyrinth is an extension of hell or its own dimension, I have no idea, but it's been referred to as hell. But yeah, you all have an idea. The Leviathan is this massive spinning diamond puzzle box in the sky that is unfathomably huge, and it is the creator of and dominator of everything in Leviathan's realm. This includes the labyrinth itself and all the Cenobites, and it orchestrates all the pleasure and pain that the people there experience. it is the one who tells the Cenobites what to do. Although Pinhead does seem to have some autonomy, him being apparently one of the... He's not the first Pain Hell Priest, but is apparently one of the most reasonable Hell Priests, being the only one that actually has a sort of rule set that he abides by when choosing who to take to Leviathan's realm. But, you know, we all know this is a god. Leviathan is a literal god, and possesses the power to create Cenobites. Cenobites as powerful as Pinhead, even Cenobites more powerful than Pinhead, that he created for the purpose of replacing him. You know, Leviathan is... We have no idea how powerful it is, but probably more powerful than both of the other cosmic deities I'm mentioning in this video. But with that being said, the third cosmic deity I'd like to talk about is one I'm not sure everyone's heard about, because it exists only in the Alien comics. In the Alien comic books. It is... I think maybe even it's one installment, but it's widely talked about amongst Alien franchise nerds. This is the Woman in the Dark, or, as she's more commonly known, the Xenomorph Goddess. She is this biomechanical woman who has appeared through visions in the heads of multiple people who've been face-hugged. Whilst they were face-hugged, they saw visions of this woman, and most notably the first person to experience it, who thought it was just a dream and not real, said that she embodies humanity's inevitable fate. Humanity's inevitable fate of joining with the Xenomorph species to create the perfect species, you know. That eventually the Xenomorphs will consume and assimilate all of humanity to create the perfect species, this combination of human and Xenomorph. And that's what she is, and that's what she is hell-bent to do, is create the perfect species by joining the two races together. And she is real, because although she is seen in visions, almost dreams, multiple people have seen her. And you don't normally get mass hysteria amongst people who do not know one another. So she is, without a doubt, real. She's not been in a movie yet. Apparently some people are theorizing that she might show up in Alien Earth Season 2. That was the first girl who was turned into whose brain was put into an android body. Can't remember her name. It's been a while since I watched Alien Earth. Some people theorize that she might become the Xenomorph Goddess, or that the woman that woman that David experimented on in Prometheus might become the Xenomorph Goddess. We don't really know, but hopefully filmmakers will use her at some point, because she's very, very cool. I like the idea of this core intelligence, this cosmic being that drives the Xenomorph species, the Xenomorph hive mind, unites them with one goal. But the reason I have talked about this and have listed all these is because, well, the entity has taken killers from all three of these cosmic deities, these cosmic horrors. The Xenomorph, the Demogorgon, soon to be Vecna, and Pinhead. Now, as for how their interactions would go, if I had to theorize, I'd say Leviathan probably doesn't care, because the Cenobites go there willingly to take people to provide pleasure and pain. What I do not know, because we know, like, for certain, although the Cenobites, Pinhead and Shatter, can teleport, they can transport survivors out of the trials and to the labyrinth to be subjected to unimaginable pleasure and pain, indivisible, they always wind up coming back to the campfire. Somehow they wind up transported back to the entity's realm. And so what I don't know is, is the entity angered by the fact that the Cenobites take the survivors out of the trials? Or is Leviathan angered that the entity brings the survivors back into the trials from the labyrinth? That could potentially cause conflict between the two cosmic entities. And as for the Xenomorph goddess, I do not know if she would care whatsoever. Because sure, they have one Xenomorph. Unless she has some incredible desire for conquest, which I don't think she does. I think all she really cares about is joining the human and Xenomorph race to create the super species. I'm pretty sure that's all she cares about, and there are plenty of humans in the world that she inhabits, so if I had to say which one was least likely to ever come into conflict with the entity, I'd probably say it's her. Unless, I don't know, maybe she's obsessed with finding Ripley. In that case, she might go to the entity's realm to secure her or find her. And that could cause conflict between the two of them. Could perhaps cause her to try and invade the trials. But I feel like the most likely conflict is between the entity and the Mind Flayer. The Mind Flayer, as far as we know, exists purely to conquer. It is in its nature to take over other worlds and dimensions. That seems to be all it does. All it cares about is taking over and, destroying other dimensions and conquering. That is all it exists for, is domination. So, when it learns about this new realm, the entity's realm, it will likely want to come and take it over. Because, as far as we know, that Demogorgon is still connected to the hive mind. And, a lot of people have said when the Stranger Things license expired initially, basically the Mind Flayer took that Demogorgon back. But now that the Demogorgon has returned, and soon Vecna will be joining him, perhaps the Mind Flayer wants to get back its most prized puppet. Yes, I know Vecna is not controlled by the Mind Flayer, but I feel like the Mind Flayer used suggestion to psychologically manipulate him into doing what he wanted, convincing him that what the Mind Flayer wanted for the world is exactly what Henry wanted as well. And it just so happened to work on Henry, because he had beliefs in the first place that aligned. So, it's very likely that with a fully grown Demogorgon, which apparently is pretty valuable, I think, and his most prized puppet being trapped in this realm, perhaps the Mind Flayer will want to come and take them back, or will see this new realm as a new opportunity for conquest and wish to dominate it and gain a foothold there before it attempts to take over our universe again. That is exciting to me. I'm imagining images in my head of in the lobby, in the far background, you see the Mind Flayer in the back, now invaded the entity's realm, or possibly battling the entity itself. They're both kind of spider-shaped entities, right? The Mind Flayer has always kept a spider shape ever since it had Henry come to the Dimension X and mold it into the spider shape, which I think it intended, because when Henry first came into contact with the Mind Flayer, he saw the cloud, he saw the swirling cloud that is the Mind Flayer, and then it said, "Come find me." And then he sees this brief flash of the Mind Flayer in its spider shape. for all we know, Henry wasn't even obsessed with spiders until after that, so maybe the Mind Flayer planted that idea in his head. It wants to be a spider or something. And it's kept the spider shape throughout its 3 different appearances. The Starcourt flesh monster, and the pain tree, and the shadow, in its shadow form. Its particles. It's kept that forever, and as we all know, the entity, as we can best describe it, is this spider monster. Anyway, this idea of this war between the entity and the Mind Flayer has been in the ideas of people for actually a long time. And I don't know, I'm excited that it might possibly become a thing, at least in the lobby, when the new Stranger Things chapter releases. Anyway, I'm super excited, and I think it's fun to think about all these and think about ideas, because, hey, if Hellraiser comes back, I feel like it will. Perhaps they'll have a big cosmetic deal and will add a lobby in where Leviathan has invaded the entity's realm and is floating in the background of the lobby. That would be awesome. And I don't know. You know what? I will actually make a video about possible continuation and DLC for when certain licenses return, most notably Pinhead and Michael. Because when their licenses do return, that is a golden opportunity for new cosmetics and legendary skins, unique Moris to come with skins, and all sorts of stuff. It's still like super frustrating to me that they didn't make the female Cenobite a skin for the Cenobite as well, and stuff like that. But I have lots more to talk about in that area, so I'll probably make that into a different video. If you're excited, feel free to comment. But most importantly, if you want to add anything to this discussion, please comment. I would love to banter with somebody in the comments. Just, you know, I love arguing, friendly argument. I don't like to argue angrily. I just like to discuss. So anyway, let's all get excited for Stranger Things tomorrow. And if you want, we can talk in the comments. Bye bye.